Hello and welcome to What's Ailing Ya. Today we're going to talk about breaking the trauma bond and why letting go feels so hard. This is a Christian counseling podcast where we name the pain we've been taught to hide and bring it into the light of truth, healing, and God's grace. I'm Elva Chase and I'm a board certified Christian counselor. Now each week we talk honestly about anxiety, trauma, broken relationships, church hurt, emotional exhaustion, and much more. Not with shame, not with spiritual bypassing, and not with the pressure to pretend that faith means you don't hurt. This is a safe space to slow down, to just breathe and begin healing. So let's start with the disclaimer. Before we go any further, I want to share an important note. This podcast is for educational and faith-based support purposes only. This is not a substitute for medical care or emergency services. Now, listening to this podcast does not create a counseling relationship. If you're looking for more of sessions, then contact me at elvachase.com. Now, if you're experiencing thoughts of harming yourself or others, or you feel unsafe, contact your local emergency services or crisis hotline immediately. Now, please listen with discernment, care for yourself gently, and seek appropriate professional support when needed. Now, today we're talking about trauma bonds and what they are, how they form, and why breaking them can feel harder than staying in pain. Now, a trauma bond is not love. It's a deep emotional and nervous system attachment formed through cycles of pain followed by relief. Hurt, then apology, right? Fear, then reassurance. Distance, then closeness. Now, over time, your body learns something powerful. That connection comes after endurance. Now, this is not because something is wrong with you. It's because the nervous system is designed to attach in order to survive. Now, there are many trauma bonds traced back to early relational patterns. Not because caregivers were bad or intentionally harmful, but because they may have been emotionally limited, overwhelmed, or even unaware of how their own wounds affected connection. This is not about blaming parents. It's about understanding patterns. And you can honor what someone did give you and still acknowledge what you needed and didn't receive. Both can be true. And when emotional needs go unmet early on, the body can later cling to inconsistency, not because it's healthy, but because it's familiar. That's why trauma bonds often show up in adult relationships marked by emotional manipulation and even narcissistic dynamics, spiritual control, or even chronic invalidation. And here's a crucial distinction, right? You're often not attached to the person. Nope, you're attached to the cycle, the hope, the relief, the moment things feel okay again. That's why leaving can feel terrifying. Because your body equates separation with danger, even when your mind knows the relationship is harming you. Now, as a board-certified Christian counselor, I want to say this clearly. This is not a lack of faith. This is not weakness. This is trauma physiology. So let's talk plainly about the question that so many people ask. How do you actually break a trauma bond? You don't break a trauma bond by forcing yourself to move on. You break it by interrupting the cycle your body learned to survive. First, we name the cycle, not just the person. Trauma bonds are not about how much you love someone. They're about repeated patterns of pain followed by relief. And when you can say, this is a trauma bond, shame starts to loosen its grip and clarity begins to form. Second, we stop feeding the bond. Trauma bonds are reinforced through contact, text messages, conversations, checking the social media, re-explaining your pain. Now, when possible, reducing or eliminating contact is not punishment. It's actually nervous system care. Boundaries are not unloving. They are protective. Third, Expect emotional withdrawal and don't panic. You may feel grief, longing, anxiety, maybe even regret. That doesn't mean you're making the wrong choice. It means your body is adjusting to the absence of chaos. Let me say that again. That doesn't mean you're making the wrong choice. It means your body is adjusting to the absence of chaos. And healing often feels uncomfortable before it feels peaceful. Fourth, we replaced chaos with regulation. Trauma bonds thrive in dysregulation. Healing happens when your body experiences consistency and safety. And this can include grounding practices like gentle routines, trauma-informed counseling, and prayer that focuses on God's presence, not self-correction or pressure. Now, the fifth thing is to rebuild self-trust and identity. Trauma bonds disconnect you from your inner voice. Healing includes learning to trust your discernment again, emotionally, relationally, and spiritually. God's voice does not require self-abandonment. Now, the sixth thing is to allow grief without guilt. You're not grieving because you failed. You're grieving because you hoped. God does not rush grief. He meets us in it. Scripture tells us he is near to the brokenhearted, not disappointed by them. Breaking a trauma bond is not instant. It is layered. It's also courageous. And it is sacred work. Now, if this episode stirred something in you and you like support, you can learn more or schedule a session with me by visiting Elva, V as in Victor, Chase.com. Next time on What's Ailing Ya, we're going to talk a little bit about trauma bonds and faith and how scripture is sometimes misused to keep people stuck, and how God's character actually supports boundaries, supports truth and freedom. Now, before I let you go, I want you to journal. I want you to journal and just sit quietly with these gentle reflection questions. When have I confused relief after pain with love or connection? Ask yourself that. When have I confused relief after pain with love or connection? Here's another one for you. What emotions come up when I imagine distance or boundaries with this person? What emotions come up when I imagine distance or boundaries with this person? Am I minimizing harm to preserve attachment? That's a good one. Am I minimizing harm to preserve attachment? Here's another one for you. What would safety feel like in my body, not just peace in my thoughts? What would safety feel like in my body, not just peace in my thoughts? And lastly, where might God be inviting me into gentler truth rather than endurance? Where might God be inviting me into gentler truth rather than endurance? Until then, remember, you are not weak, you are not faithless, you are healing. And that, my lovelies, is holy work. Breathe, take your time, and remember, there's no rush in healing. Until next time, take care.